Hey you guys, and welcome to Nita's Fluid Woodworks. I'm Nita, and today I'm going to show you how I created this Michigan themed nightstand. So it's made with epoxy resin, hand-picked stones from the Great Lakes here in Michigan, and the wood is shaped like our mitten. This was a custom order, part of a 3-piece set. This is one of 3 videos. And here we go. I'm going to take you step by step and show you how I made this beauty. Here's the slab. So you've got a couple options here. You can flatten and just flatten the whole thing out and then cut it down to size, or you can cut it down to size and then flatten it. So I'm going to cut it down to size because I'm not going to flatten anything that I don't need to flatten. Okay, so let's cut it down to size. Doing this, you can use a circular saw, a track saw. If you use a circular saw, you can use a jigsaw. Just make sure you're cutting your lines straight because you want a square table. If you're using a circular saw, use the, they have a guide or a straight edge, so use that, okay? Okay, so I have the wood that I want to use, and now what I'm going to do is square up the edges to get it to fit inside of the frame or the mold that I'm going to use for this table, this nightstand. So I pre-made the mold out of MDF. I just stripped down a sheet of MDF into, I think it's about 2 inches high, like 2-inch thick strips, and I tacked them together with a nail gun. So I'm gonna get the general like layout of what I want it to look like. Oops, sorry about the microphone. So this is what I'm seeing right here. It looks like Michigan, and my client really liked that. So I'm just going to make my marks and cut it down to size so that way it fits inside of the frame. Okay, so make your marks and then we're going to cut everything down to size. I'm going to use my track saw. It's a Makita track saw. I'll put the links to everything that I use down in the description. So I didn't do this all with one cut. This is like the 3rd cut because it's super long or super thick. So the reason that I have this right here is so that way the slab can't move. I'm going to start on this side and then I'll flip it. So use wedges to flatten your slab. If you don't know how to flatten a slab, I will link that video up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to evenly distribute that. Okay? Get my dust mask on. Okay, so here I'm using Stone Coat Countertops Slab Flattening Jig. This will also be linked down in the description. When I first started out, I used basically a jig made out of 2x4s. Then I made one out of steel. And then I upgraded to this. I now have a TOTS Take 1 2, but I have yet to set it up. I am going to wait until I get into my new shop in my new house to do that. This works amazing. I've been using this for about 2 years now, and I love it. Okay, so the next step is to remove the bark. If the bark is already gone, you're going to see this thin layer that's between the bark and the wood. It has a name. I don't know the name of it. Just take it off. You can use an angle grinder with a flap disc. I'm just using my turbo sander. I will link this down below as well. I love this sander. It compares to the Festool Rotex. Love that thing. Okay, so now you have your form. All I did was just tacked it together with a nail gun connected to my air compressor. So the tape that I'm using is tuck tape. It is a sheathing tape, and the reason that I'm putting it down is because the resin does not stick to it. You put a layer of this down. You can use anything, like anything for your frame or your mold, especially if you need it to be round or like just weirdly shaped. So I do the corners first because it takes away any potential possibility of a leak being sprung. And if you are just starting to work with resin, you can bet your bottom dollar that you will spring a leak. Like you will get a leak in your table. So I cut the edges right there and then fold them down so that way when I put the frame down, when I caulk the frame down, it doesn't get in the way. So just fold your edges down over whatever your frame is, and so that way the bottom will be flush with the bottom of your frame, okay? So this is the rest of the MDF that I stripped down to make the frame. I am using it for the bottom. It's 3/4 MDF. MDF stands for medium density fiberboard. You can get it at Home Depot or your local like lumber yard. We have 3 lumber yards in my town. It's a small town. One of them carries this. Home Depot and Lowe's carries it too though. So I'm laying down the tuck tape, sheathing tape, and this is going to prevent the epoxy, the table, from sticking to the MDF. Okay, so the caulk that I use is 100% silicone caulk. I like to use a color though. The reason that I like to use a color is because I can see if I missed a spot or if there's any pinholes. I use white, that's my preference. The black, I've had dye light wood, dark, and I didn't like that, so I just use white. Oops, piece of wood just fell on my foot. So yeah, I do the bottom, and then I flip it over, and then I do the inside, and I do the outside. This is going to ensure that you don't get a leak and epoxy does not run all over your floor. So just be cautious and pay attention and take your time. You should be fine. Okay, so for colors, I like to use epoxy pigment paste. You can use any blues that you want. You can use any colors. You don't have to even use blues. I've done pink and black, and you can pick your colors. I picked blues. I use 3 different kinds of blues, and I get them from Just Resin. There is not a link that I can give you for them. They're based out of Australia, so you just have to look on Google. Okay, so here you're gonna see that I am using a heat gun and not a torch. The reason that I'm using a heat gun is just because I'm pushing the blues just to create a water effect. So I always use a torch to pop my bubbles. I'm going to add rocks in here. My Petoskey stones. I always add Petoskey stones. These are my Michigan tables. And that is just what I do. So I'm putting down a translucent blue and popping bubbles, creating some waves, and making it gorgeous. All right, so I push my waves with a heat gun. If you don't know how to make waves, I have a video on that. That'll create lacing and cells and all kinds of gorgeousness. So that is it. Like, she is looking so pretty. Forgive me for the way that I had to put this video because it was recorded on my phone and it was actually a TikTok. So here I'm using Incredible Solutions Deep Pour Epoxy. Here is the coupon code. I will also put it in the bottom. I love this resin. I am an affiliate with them, but I used it way longer than I was an affiliate. I will not recommend a product that I do not use and believe in. So it's pourable plastic. That's what it's called. It's a casting resin, 2-to-1, and I get the best bubble-free pours that I've ever had using any kind of other casting resin. Okay, so I know you watch YouTube, and obviously you're here. But I'm going to tell you, I use a torch to pop bubbles. I don't use a heat gun. I use a heat gun to create effects in resin. I use a torch to get rid of bubbles. I don't want to be splashing resin all over the place, and this is just way more effective to me altogether. So I'm doing a second pour over on the other side, and I believe I do a third pour. So just fill her up. Like I said, I'm going to place all of the links to everything down below. This is not going to be an Amazon link. This is going to be a link directly to their website, so that way you can get the best deal possible. This resin is actually very affordable, so, and it's some of the best stuff I've used. So, all right, fill her up. This is like one of the best parts. I love pouring. So you're going to see me, I'm pouring up into a crack. This is just so that way I know, because this resin is a lot thinner than the tabletop resin and stuff like that. So I feel like it just goes deeper, and altogether it just creates a better product. Then you're going to pop your bubbles again and wait. Hurry up and wait. Okay, so you see here I'm doing a TikTok, but I am popping bubbles, and my followers on TikTok find this so relaxing. I must admit it is relaxing. So just pop your bubbles, wait. Like I come back every 8 hours or so for the first 24 hours, and I do this. Alright, so here we have our Michigan table out of the mold. She is looking gorgeous. There's a really high gloss on here. Of course it's epoxy, but we got that one. We got our flat rocks. We got our live edge here. Okay, so now we're going to flatten again. I use the same bit, the same router, the same sled, and I just take the wood down to the epoxy. Really, really easy. I always do step downs. If you don't know how to flatten wood or tables or whatever it is that you're making, I have a video on here. I'm going to link it up and put it up in the top, and you could just click on there, and that'll show you how to flatten your wood and use a jig like this. Okay, so now I'm just gonna clean everything up, and it is looking gorgeous. Gorgeous. I'm going to square the table up, give it 90-degree angles. Here I'm using my Makita track saw. I love this little saw. It is a lifesaver. Like, I seriously use it daily. So when you're doing your pieces, always round over your edges if you're doing an epoxy flood coat. If you're doing an epoxy finish, round over your edges or do some kind of edge that is rounded over so the epoxy flows over the sides. Here I'm going to start sanding. I start with 80 and then 120. You can do 150 or 180 and then 220. And I stop at 220 when I do an epoxy finish, and that is always sufficient enough to get a completely clear surface. Always try to use a dust collection. I have my Festool dust collection. I think I'm using the rigid one here. I didn't have my Festool connected at that time. So just try to use a dust collection because it will reduce swirl marks and pigtails. That is huge when it comes to this. Always wipe your dust off. I'm using 91% isopropyl alcohol. The reason that I use alcohol is because it does not leave behind a residue. And you see there, I'm just wiping the dust again. It doesn't leave a residue and it dries really, really fast. So 91% isopropyl alcohol. Lifesaver, game changer. And you can see, you get a little sneak peek when you go to wipe it down and you put the alcohol on there. You get a little sneak peek. That is looking gorgeous. All right, so we're doing seal coats. If you don't know how to do a seal coat, I have a video on YouTube. I will place it up in the top, I will link it at the end, of how to get a perfect epoxy finish. This is huge. Do your seal coats before your flood coats. Seal coats are 1 ounce per square foot or a ½ ounce per square foot. All you're doing is just getting the wood wet. And you're going to do 2 to 3 of these. And the reason for this is because you don't want air from the wood coming up through to your flood coat and causing problems and bubbles in your flood coat. So you got to seal that wood off before you do your seal coats. This is huge. Do not skip your seal coats. I see a lot of people on YouTube. This is the second seal coat, and I'm pretty sure I only did 2 seal coats, but it was sufficient enough, and you can tell if there's any dry spots in your wood, or any cracks or holes that need to be filled. I have a video on what to do if you've got like a little hole or something in the wood or something that needs to be covered up. So just get it wet. Do not put a lot on the surface for your seal coats, okay? Okay, so somehow I skipped the seal coat or the flood coat. I have no idea. My battery must have died or something. But the finished product is coming up next. So if you don't know how to do these or you just want to see the full process of how to get a perfect epoxy finish, I have that YouTube video available. I will put the link down in the description, and I will also link it in the end of this video. So here she is. This is what she looks like. She is gorgeous, but I am not done yet. I am going to do a non-scratch surface from Silicone countertops called the Ultimate Top Coat. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So here is the finished piece. She is gorgeous. She is shiny. So sexy. Look at those rocks. We're going to get the drips off the bottom and finish the bottom. Okay, so flip it over and you're going to see all the drips from the flood coat. I'm using a Makita angle grinder with a aluminum oxide flap disc. You can get these at Harbor Freight for like 98 cents when they go on sale. Otherwise, they're about $4 or $5. But they last a hell of a long time. So, you be very, very careful when you're doing this. Like, take your time. Don't go on the edges and just get the drips off. Okay, so now we're going to sand again. I'm starting at 80 and I'm working my way up to 220. I'm going to use a hard oil finish called Odie's Oil. I will also link that down in the description. I love Odie's Oil. It is a hard oil finish. It takes minimal effort to use and it's just gorgeous. It makes the wood look prettier over time. And it's just like wipe on, wipe off. You can buff it off. Here it is. This stuff is so easy, and the quality of it is just crazy. Like, I love Odie's Oil. I use Rubio Monocoat too. But for stuff like this, I just prefer my Odie's. So you're going to wipe it on, leave it for a little bit, and then wipe it off. At least 45 minutes. You just buff it off or just use a rag and wipe off the excess. Okay, so I have sanded the top down all the way up to 220. or all I did was just sanded it with 220. Make sure you use a dust collection, and this will reduce swirl marks and everything like that. So I'm going to use a wet dry roller method. I'm going to put it on with the wet and then take it off with the dry. And this is a newer version of the Ultimate Top Coat. Before, they only had like the matte finish, and this one is the gloss finish, and I like this one so much better. Like, I love this one. The matte finish, it just didn't give you that transparency that I was looking for. I did a daycare table, and I was happy all the way up until the scratch resistant finish. They insisted that I used it. And then they came out with this, and this is a game changer. So I absolutely love this finish. So you just wipe it on or roll it on with the wet and then roll it off with the dry, and you are done. This altogether turned out so beautiful. If you look next to it, that is the coffee table that goes with it. I am going to do a video on that one as well, and I will get that video out hopefully by the end of this weekend. So if you are watching this and it is in the future, then it is probably already out. So there she is. Gorgeous. Thank you so much, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, drop them down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time.